Usually, when we talk about a ticking clock, there's this expectation of adrenaline.
Oh, like in an action movie.
Yeah, exactly. Like you have 10 seconds to cut the wire, right? The red one or the blue one.
And the hero just kind of squints, snips it, and the timer stops right at like 001.
Right. It's so cinematic. High stakes, fast action. But then, you step into the real world.
Which is usually much less cinematic.
Much less. You step into like a standard Monday morning meeting or maybe one of those weekly cross-departmental Zoom check-ins.
Oh, yeah. Everyone's favorite thing.
Right. And suddenly, that ticking clock isn't thrilling at all. When someone looks at you across a boardroom table and says, hey, we only have 2 minutes left, just give us a quick update.
Yeah, the air just leaves the room.
It really does. The communicative landscape you're suddenly standing in is, honestly, it's paralyzing.
It's the absolute definition of performance paralysis. Because the rules of engagement in that room, they just shifted entirely on you.
You're not just chatting anymore.
No, not at all. You are no longer having a conversation. You are now fighting against the structural constraint of time. And the human brain, well, it's notoriously bad at editing complex information under immediate pressure.
It just shorts out. So today, we are doing a deep dive into a very specific scenario that captures this exact terror.
And we have a great source material to guide us through it today.
We really do. We're looking at a guy, let's just call him Bruce. Bruce has a task.
A very unenviable task.
Yeah, has to present a very short update on a team project. And Bruce is currently grappling with intense, debilitating nervousness.
He's sweating.
Oh, he is sweating through his shirt. And if you've ever felt your heart pounding against your ribs because you suddenly realize you have like 60 seconds to justify the last month of your professional life.
Which is a terrifying realization.
It is. You know exactly what Bruce is feeling. And I think whether you're navigating a boardroom in your native language or you're carrying the extra cognitive weight of presenting in English as a second language, Bruce's dilemma is it's totally universal.
It absolutely is. And to actually solve Bruce's problem, we can't just throw standard public speaking tips at him. Like, imagine the audience in their underwear isn't going to cut it here.
Right. That never works anyway.
No, it just makes things weirder. We have to look at the underlying mechanics of the situation. We have to understand the specific psychological trap of the short presentation.
Which is sort of the core of our deep dive today.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Because there is a deeply ingrained paradox at play here. And the paradox is this. Brevity is fundamentally more terrifying than length.
Let's unpack that paradox.
Right.
Because, on the surface, that feels completely counterintuitive.
It really does sound backward.
Right. Like if someone tells you, hey, you have to stand up and talk for an hour, your immediate reaction is usually just pure panic.
You start thinking, how on earth do I fill that time?
Exactly. What if I run out of things to say after 10 minutes? But if someone says, hey, just give us 2 minutes, the logical response should be relief.
Right, because 2 minutes is nothing. You can survive almost anything for 2 minutes.
You hold your breath for 2 minutes. But we don't feel relieved. We feel like Bruce. We panic. We sweat. Why does a very short update trigger such an intense nervous response?
Well, it comes down to cognitive load and the illusion of safety that time provides.
The illusion of safety.
Yeah. When you are given an hour to speak, you actually have a massive safety net. Human beings are, by nature, very discursive creatures.
I like to ramble.
We do. We think out loud. We tell stories with weird detours. We circle back to our points. We add little caveats.
Right. We constantly self-correct as we talk.
Exactly. And if you're speaking for an hour, you have the luxury of warming up. Like if you stumble in the first 5 minutes, you have 55 whole minutes to win the room back.
You can just pivot.
Yes. You can read the audience's micro-expressions, realize, oh, a point isn't landing, and take a completely different rhetorical path to explain yourself. You have space to breathe.
But a 2-minute update that basically just burns that safety net straight to the ground.
It doesn't just burn it. It penalizes the very nature of how we naturally communicate.
Because you can't ramble.
You cannot ramble. Brevity requires a level of precision that a long, meandering speech simply doesn't. Every single word in a 2-minute window has this immense amount of weight attached to it.
No, that makes so much sense. Like if you spend 30 seconds just clearing your throat and giving, I don't know, unnecessary background information.
You've just wasted 25% of your allotted time.
Right. And you haven't even made your point yet. And remember the context of Bruce's scenario from our source material here. This isn't just an update on what he ate for breakfast.
No, it specifically says it's a team project.
Exactly. He is carrying the responsibility of representing other people's hard work, their late nights, their specific contributions over the last month.
That's a heavy burden.
It is. The pressure to compress weeks of complex, multi-person effort into a tiny, unforgiving window is profoundly paralyzing because it forces the brain into this aggressive, real-time editing process.
It's a great way to put it. Real-time editing is exhausting for the brain.
I always think of it like it's like being asked to pack a tiny carry-on suitcase for a month-long expedition.
Oh, I like that analogy.
Right. Like if you have a massive, oversized steamer trunk, packing is entirely stress-free.
You just throw everything in?
Exactly. 3 winter coats? Sure. 5 pairs of shoes? Why not? The entire encyclopedia set? Toss it in. The volume of the container allows for incredibly sloppy decision-making.
And that's the 1-hour presentation right there. You just pack every single thought you have.
Exactly. But when you are staring at a tiny, rigid, airline-approved carry-on, and you know you're going away for a month, the panic sets in.
You have to make choices, hard choices.
Right, and the difficulty isn't in figuring out what to put in the suitcase. The agonizing part, the part that causes legitimate physical stress, is deciding what you have to leave out.
Yeah, the omission is the painful part.
You're holding like a heavy wool sweater, wondering if the weather will drop below freezing.
Yeah.
If you leave it, you might freeze. If you pack it, you lose a quarter of your suitcase space.
And in Bruce's case, with his presentation, those sweaters are his data points.
Yeah.
They are the intricate, messy nuances of the team's workflow. The sweater might be a brilliant vendor negotiation that saved the company $5,000, or maybe a complex piece of coding someone had to rewrite at 2 a.m. on a Sunday.
And Bruce feels a moral obligation to pack all of it.
He really does. He wants to prove the team's worth. He wants to validate their existence to the higher-ups. But the temporal suitcase, that 2-minute window, is simply too small.
It won't zip shut. No.
So the anxiety comes from the fear of omission. It's the fear that if he leaves the vendor negotiation out of the update, the executives in the room will assume the team didn't do any work at all.
That fear of omission is so real. I mean, I feel that all the time. But, let me challenge the premise of this anxiety for a second.
Sure, go for it.
Because we always treat presentation anxiety like it's a disease we have to cure.
All right.
Or some weakness we have to completely eradicate.
Yeah, there's a whole industry built around calming down.
Right. We tell people to take deep breaths, picture the audience in their underwear, do whatever it takes to sedate yourself. But I look at Bruce sweating in his chair, and I'm not totally convinced his nervousness is inherently the villain here.
Interesting. So what is it then?
Well, is it possible that this anxiety is actually a necessary mechanism? Like it's just misplaced energy?
Well, I'm not sure I'd call it necessary if it's literally paralyzing him and keeping him from speaking.
Fair point.
Because unfocused anxiety is disastrous for executive function. When your amygdala fires up because it perceives a threat, even a social threat like a bad presentation, it literally reroutes processing power away from the prefrontal cortex.
Which is the part of the brain you need.
Exactly. It's
Yeah.
where you need to be doing that complex real-time editing we just talked about. If the amygdala is screaming, the prefrontal cortex goes offline.
Right, right. But what if the problem isn't the presence of the energy itself, but the absence of a mechanism to process it?
How do you mean?
Look at it biologically. The body's physiological response to fear and its response to excitement, they're near identical.
Heart rate goes up, adrenaline spikes.
Exactly. Heart rate elevates, pupils dilate, adrenaline hits the bloodstream. It's just a state of heightened arousal. The fuel is being pumped into the engine.
The body is preparing to do something difficult.
Right. The only difference is the cognitive framing. Right now, Bruce's fuel is just spilling all over the floor, causing a fire hazard in his brain, basically, because he's sitting still.
He doesn't know what to do with the adrenaline.
Exactly. Doesn't that energy just need a track to run on? Instead of trying to eliminate the nerve, shouldn't he just be trying to harness the adrenaline?
Okay, I see where you're going. If we define the nerves as raw, uncalibrated adrenaline, then yes, the goal shouldn't be to sedate the speaker.
Because you need energy to give a good presentation.
You do. The goal is to build an infrastructure that can actually handle the surge in voltage. If you just have raw electricity bouncing around a circuit board, you get a short circuit.
And that's Bruce freezing out.
That's Bruce blanking on his words, or suddenly speaking at 100 miles an hour and rambling incoherently. He needs a conductive pathway. He needs a highly structured track to force that energy to flow in a productive direction.
And that infrastructure, that specific track to handle the voltage, brings us to the core philosophy of what we're looking at today from our source text.
Yes, the text lays this out perfectly.
It does, and it's something that is explicitly called the art of the simple project update. Not the science, not the formula, the art.
The word art there is doing a lot of heavy lifting, I think.
Really? How so?
Well, when people in a corporate or professional setting hear the word art, they usually think of aesthetic flourishes.
Oh, like pretty slides.
Exactly. They think of designing beautiful slide decks with elaborate animations or becoming this masterful Steve Jobs-esque storyteller pacing the stage in a black turtleneck.
Right, with dramatic pauses and mood lighting.
Yeah. But framing simplicity as an art form requires a complete paradigm shift from that.
Because true simplicity is, honestly, it's incredibly violent. It requires cutting away almost everything. And that is fundamentally an act of ego removal.
Let's delve into that because the ego is the single biggest obstacle to the simple update.
It gets in the way of everything.
It really does. When human beings do difficult work, our ego naturally and inevitably attaches itself to the struggle of that work.
We want credit.
Of course we do. We are biologically wired to seek validation for our expended energy. If Bruce and his team spent the last 3 weeks fighting against a buggy software update, missing their kids' bedtimes, dealing with internal bureaucratic nightmares,
Bruce's ego is desperate to communicate that pain to the stakeholders.
he wants them to know it wasn't easy.
He wants to show his work, like in a middle school math test.
Yeah.
You know, even if he got the final answer right, he wants the teacher to see the agonizing long division.
That's a perfect way to describe it.
Right. He wants to stand up and say, the project is on track, but man, you have no idea what we went through. First, the server crashed on Tuesday, and then Dave in accounting didn't approve the budget in time, so we had to invent a manual workaround.
Precisely. The ego whispers to him, if I don't explain the complexity of my struggle, they won't respect my competence.
Which is such a trap.
It is. The ego equates complexity with value. It assumes that a smooth, simple update implies that the job was just easy. And if the job was easy, well, maybe Bruce isn't all that valuable to the company.
So he artificially inflates the update to justify his paycheck.
Exactly. So the art of the simple presentation is the brutal silencing of that ego.
Which takes so much discipline.
It takes immense discipline. It is the ability to stand in front of a room of people who have the power to promote or fire you and possess the quiet internal confidence to distill weeks of chaotic, messy effort down to its absolute crystalline essence.
Just the bare facts.
Just the facts. The art is trusting that the sheer clarity of the final result speaks louder than a chronological diary of your daily grievances.
It's like a chef making a reduction sauce.
For reduction sauce. Okay, walk me through the mechanics of that. I like culinary metaphors.
Well, think about what a chef starts with when they're making a deeply flavorful sauce. They start with a massive, watery pot of stock, right?
Like chicken stock or veal stock?
Exactly. It's full of bones, vegetable scraps, a gallon of water. It has a ton of volume. It takes up a huge amount of space on the stove. But if you taste it right out of the pot,
It's probably pretty bland.
yeah, the flavor is weak, it's diluted, it's totally unimpressive. So what does the chef do? They don't serve the giant pot to the customer.
That would be soup, not sauce.
Right. They put it on high heat and they just let it boil. They boil away all the excess water, all the steam, all the filler. They intentionally destroy the volume of their creation.
They reduce it.
They reduce it. And what are they left with at the very end? A tiny, tiny amount of liquid. But that liquid is thick, rich, and possesses an incredibly intense, pure flavor.
That's an elegant way to conceptualize the cognitive editing process. Bruce's 3 weeks of hard work is the giant pot of stock.
Full of bones and scraps.
Exactly. It's full of irrelevant scraps and excess water. His presentation prep shouldn't be figuring out how to serve the whole pot to the board of directors.
Right. They don't want the pot.
No, his prep should be the application of heat to boil away everything that isn't the concentrated essence of the update.
But the heat is terrifying because as a presenter, watching your volume disappear feels like you're losing your armor.
It feels very vulnerable.
It does, especially if we look at who this advice is incredibly relevant for. A lot of this framework in the source material is deeply rooted in the challenges of speaking English as a second language.
Which adds a whole new layer of cognitive load.
Or, honestly, it applies to navigating any corporate environment that is heavily polluted with jargon.
Oh, the jargon issue is a massive barrier to the reduction sauce concept. In a lot of corporate cultures, there is an unspoken rule that using multisyllabic, convoluted language proves your intellectual dominance in the room.
Oh, it's an absolute arms race of syllables. People hide behind it constantly.
We are synergizing our cross-platform deliverables.
To optimize the paradigm of our core competencies.
Yes. They think that verbal fog makes them sound bulletproof.
But it actually just alienates people.
Totally. And if you are speaking English as a second language,
Oh.
or if you are simply someone trying to actually be understood, relying on that jargon is a lethal trap.
It really is a trap because it exponentially increases the cognitive load on both the speaker and the listener.
How does it affect the speaker?
Well, for the speaker, especially a non-native speaker, you are burning crucial mental bandwidth, trying to recall and perfectly pronounce complex vocabulary that doesn't actually add any semantic value to your update.
You're making it harder on yourself for no reason. Exactly. You are juggling linguistic bowling pins while trying to walk a tightrope. And for the listener, their brain has to actively decode your corporate speak before they can even begin to evaluate your underlying message.
It's exhausting for everyone.
It is. Simplicity in this context is the ultimate flex.
I love that. Simplicity is the flex.
It is. When you strip away the jargon and deliver a perfectly reduced, simple update, you are signaling a profound level of confidence. You are essentially telling the room, my data and my results are so inherently strong, they don't need to be dressed up in $20 words.
But here's the massive hurdle for Bruce, and really for anyone listening to us right now who has to give an update tomorrow morning.
Right.
How do we mechanically achieve that? Because a philosophical desire to be simple evaporates the second the adrenaline hits.
Philosophy doesn't survive contact with the enemy.
Exactly. If Bruce walks in and gives a 30-second update, there's a voice screaming in his head, "They think you're unprepared." How does he prove he is professional while remaining relentlessly brief?
This is where we have to cross the bridge from philosophy to architecture. Bruce cannot rely on willpower to be simple. Willpower will fail him.
So what does he need?
He needs a mechanical tool that structurally enforces simplicity. He needs a linguistic cage that prevents his ego from rambling.
A linguistic cage. I like that.
And the specific toolkit required here, according to our source material, lies in the mastery of signposting phrases. The mechanics highlight 3 foundational words. Just 3. First, next, and finally.
First, next, and finally. You know, on the surface, that sounds incredibly basic.
It does.
It sounds like the outline for, I don't know, a 5th grade book report.
Right. First, the dog went to the park. Next, he saw a squirrel.
Yeah. But there is a hidden architectural strength to these words that completely alters the psychological dynamic of a room, isn't there?
Absolutely. Let's dissect them sequentially, starting with the word first. Imagine the micro moments before Bruce speaks. He is nervous. The room falls quiet. All eyes are on him.
The dreaded silence.
The survival instinct of a nervous speaker in that dead air is to immediately fill the silence with filler words to avoid the spotlight. The instinct is to say, okay, so yeah, the project. It's been going pretty well. We had a few hiccups, but...
Oh man, that opening immediately bleeds authority. The audience instantly knows he doesn't have a map.
Exactly. It signals a complete lack of executive control. But what happens if Bruce stands up, embraces a half-second of silence, makes eye contact, and deliberately says the word first?
He plants a flag. He fundamentally alters the geometry of the room.
He makes a structural promise. The word first is not just a transition, it is an assertion of order.
It tells the brain a list is coming.
Yes. When the human brain hears first, it automatically anticipates a sequence. It anticipates a second or a next. Psychologically, it instantly calms the audience. Their brains subconsciously register, this person has synthesized the chaos into a list. They have a plan. I don't have to work hard to figure out where this is going.
But it's not just calming the audience. Think about what it does to Bruce's internal chemistry.
The adrenaline track we talked about earlier.
Exactly. Hearing his own voice articulate a boundary, saying the word first, gives his spilling adrenaline that track. He is committed to a path. He delivers his first chunk of reduced data. But then comes the most dangerous part of any short presentation.
The gap between ideas.
The transition, the void.
Right. He finishes his first point. Now what? The silence threatens to return.
And this is where people usually panic, look up at the ceiling and say, and also, or moving on to.
Or another thing we did was.
Yes.
Yeah.
Which brings us to the second mechanical tool. Next. What is the specific neurological function of the word next?
Next is the engine of momentum. In a short update, stalling out is fatal. When you stall, your brain scrambles to search its database for the next relevant piece of information, and because you are under stress, your recall is compromised.
You draw a blank.
Exactly. The word next acts as a cognitive bridge. It literally propels the speaker forward. It tells your own brain, do not linger on the point we just made. We are abandoning it and moving forward.
It forces you to keep walking.
It ensures the update doesn't lose its rhythm. And rhythm is a massive component of perceived competence.
It keeps the train ruthlessly on the tracks. You give the first point, you bridge with next, you deliver the second point, and then we arrive at the third, and arguably most vital word in this entire framework, finally. I am actually kind of obsessed with the power of this word.
It is a phenomenal piece of linguistic leverage. Why do you find it so vital?
Because it acknowledges the harsh reality of human biology. Let's be honest about what is happening in that boardroom. Even in a 2-minute update, human attention spans are incredibly fragile.
People get distracted so easily.
They do. You have executives sitting there who are physically present, but mentally they are fighting fires. They are thinking about the email they just got from a client. They're stressing about their budget review at 2 p.m. They are wondering what they're going to have for lunch. Their attention is drifting.
They are experiencing cognitive drift. It's totally inevitable.
Exactly. But the word finally is a neurological wake-up call. It is a Pavlovian bell. Right. When an audience hears finally, they know the transaction is almost over. You will literally see the physical posture of a room change.
They sit up.
They do.
Yeah.
People who are leaning back, staring vaguely at their laptops, will suddenly sit up. They lean in. They tune back into the frequency because their brain wants the dopamine hit of a completed task.
It's the light at the end of the tunnel.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Finally, recaptures all of that wandering attention, aggregates it, and focuses it entirely on Bruce for his final, most important statement. It allows him to stick the landing while the whole room is actually watching.
If we look at this from a structural standpoint, committing to first, next, finally acts as a self-imposed constraint mechanism.
A constraint mechanism.
Yes. Bruce cannot indulge his ego and ramble for 10 minutes if his grammatical architecture physically forces him to group his entire 3-week project into a maximum of 3 digestible chunks.
Oh, it's brilliant.
The mechanics of the language enforce the art of the simplicity. The constraint actually generates the freedom.
I want to look at this through the lens of a specific physical experience, because this entire dynamic of signposting reminds me so much of being a passenger in a car.
Okay, let's explore that physical sensation. I'm intrigued.
Have you ever been in the passenger seat with a driver who refuses to use their turn signals?
Oh my gosh, yes. It's an incredibly stressful experience.
It is exhausting. You're driving down a busy road. The driver just suddenly swerves into the left lane. Then they brake hard. Then they jerk the wheel right to turn down a side street without any warning.
You're just getting tossed around.
Right. As the passenger, what is your physical state? Your muscles are tense. Your foot is instinctively hitting an imaginary brake pedal on the floorboard.
You're bracing for impact.
You are bracing for impact because you have zero predictability. You are entirely at the mercy of the driver's erratic internal monologue. You feel motion sick, you feel confused, and you ultimately lose all trust in the person behind the wheel.
And that physical state of tension is exactly what an audience feels when a presenter fails to use structural signposts. When a speaker jumps from a budget issue instantly over to a hiring update and then jerks back to a complaint about software without any verbal warning, the audience gets rhetorical whiplash.
Whiplash is the perfect word for it.
They are bracing for cognitive impacts they cannot predict.
Yes.
Yeah.
But contrast that with a driver who communicates. A driver who approaches an intersection and 3 seconds early flips on the left turn signal. Click, click, click.
The best sound.
What happens to you, the passenger? You immediately relax. You know a left turn is coming. Your body naturally leans into the turn. You feel safe. The signposts first, next, finally, are the turn signals of professional communication.
That is a great analogy.
They tell everyone in the passenger seats exactly where the presentation is turning, when it's accelerating, and when it is finally pulling into the driveway.
But if we carry that driving analogy to its logical conclusion, we arrive at the most profound paradigm shift in this entire discussion.
Which is what?
Think about the turn signal. Who is the turn signal actually for? It is not for the driver.
Right, the driver already knows where they're going.
Exactly. The driver knows they intend to turn left. The turn signal is entirely, 100%, an act of communication for other people. It is a courtesy. It is a mechanism of safety designed to protect the people around you.
Oh, wow. Which brings us to the ultimate, highest level realization. The core text we're analyzing dictates that the ultimate goal of these signposting phrases is to guide the listener.
It's not about saving Bruce.
No, it's about serving the room.
This is the exact moment the entire philosophy of public speaking inverts. When we are consumed by anxiety, our perspective becomes violently self-centered.
We only think about ourselves.
It is a basic biological survival mechanism. When the amygdala senses a threat, it pulls all your awareness inward to protect the organism. Bruce is standing there thinking, how do I look? What if I forget my words? Are they judging me? Will I get fired?
The spotlight effect.
Yes, the spotlight effect is blinding, and it totally isolates the speaker from the audience.
You become trapped in a prison of your own ego. But the directive to guide the listener is the key to unlocking that cell.
Because the absolute foundational truth of effective communication is that the presentation is not about you. It is not an audition for your intelligence.
That's a hard pill to swallow for a lot of people.
It is, but it's true. The audience in that room is sacrificing their most valuable, non-renewable resource, their time and their cognitive bandwidth, to listen to you. Your only job, your sacred duty in that 2-minute window is to be a relentless steward of their attention. You have to make them feel safe.
So when Bruce stands up and says, first, the server migration is complete. Next, we are initiating user testing. Finally, we'll deliver the finalized report on Thursday. He isn't just reciting a bulleted list to prove he works hard.
No, he's doing much more than that.
He is metaphorically reaching out, taking the executives by the hand, and walking them safely through the dark, chaotic woods of his team's project. He's saying, I know the terrain is complex, I know you're busy, but don't worry, I have the map. Just follow my voice.
And when a speaker adopts that posture of service, an incredibly powerful, real-time physiological feedback loop is initiated in the room.
I want to dissect that feedback loop, because I think this is the holy grail of curing presentation anxiety. Walk me through the mechanics of what happens between the speaker and the audience when this dynamic locks into place.
It starts with the listener's cognitive load. When the audience hears the turn signals, their brain realizes it doesn't have to work hard to assemble the puzzle pieces.
The speaker's doing the heavy lifting for them.
Exactly. When the brain realizes it's safe from cognitive overload, it sends a signal to the body to downregulate. The audience physically changes. Their shoulders drop away from their ears. They stop fidgeting.
Relax.
They might offer subtle, subconscious micro-expressions of agreement, like a slight nod, a softening of the eyes. They transition from a state of critical scrutiny to a state of relaxed receptivity.
And Bruce, standing at the front of the room, is visually processing all of those micro-expressions.
Exactly. His optic nerve is taking in the data of a relaxed, nodding audience. That visual data is sent straight to his brain, and it directly contradicts the narrative of his anxiety.
Oh, because his amygdala was screaming, we are under attack, they hate us.
Right. But his eyes are saying, they are nodding, they are relaxed, we are safe. The brain updates its threat assessment. It realizes the social danger has passed. And immediately, it begins to shut off the cortisol and adrenaline valves.
The physical symptoms just fade away.
Yes. The sweaty palms, the racing heart, they begin to literally biologically evaporate.
Let's just pause and admire the sheer brilliance of that mechanism. Let me make sure I have this sequence exactly right, because it's kind of mind-blowing.
Go for it.
Bruce uses a rigid, simple structure. First, next, finally, initially out of self-preservation, because his adrenaline needs a track.
Yes, it originates as a defensive tactic.
But because that specific defensive tactic happens to perfectly guide the listener and make their life easier, the listener perceives Bruce as a masterful, organized, and deeply confident leader.
They project competence onto him.
Their bodies relax in response to his perceived leadership. Bruce sees their relaxation, and that external validation actually manufactures real internal confidence within his own nervous system.
That's the loop.
The very tool he deployed to hide his terror is the exact mechanism that biologically cures it.
It is a self-fulfilling prophecy of competence. You cannot simultaneously play the role of a terrified victim and a trusted guide.
They're mutually exclusive.
They are. The human brain cannot hold both identities at the front of consciousness. By leaning into the structure, by aggressively prioritizing the listener's experience over your own internal chaos, you force your brain to adopt the identity of the guide.
You know, if you are listening to this right now, maybe on your commute, maybe you're sitting in the parking lot about to walk into an office building where you have to speak, I want you to weaponize this concept.
It's highly weaponizable.
It is. This is a profound life hack that scales far beyond a 2-minute project update. Whenever you feel the crushing weight of the spotlight, whenever your imposter syndrome is screaming that you aren't smart enough or eloquent enough, flip the script. Stop analyzing your own performance. Make it an exercise in radical empathy.
Radical empathy, that is the perfect term for it.
Ask yourself, how can I make the next 60 seconds easier for the person sitting across from me? How can I save them mental energy?
Because people love it when you save them energy.
They do. When you redirect your focus entirely outward to serve the listener, the internal pressure simply ceases to exist. You aren't defending your ego anymore. You were just helping someone cross the street. And paradoxically, when you stop trying to sound like a genius, that is exactly when you are perceived as one.
It is the ultimate realization of what it means to truly communicate. It is a fundamental shift in perspective that transforms vulnerability into undeniable authority.
So let's pull back and look at the massive journey we've navigated today in this deep dive. We started with a painfully relatable, seemingly mundane scenario.
Poor Bruce.
Yeah, we had Bruce sitting in a chair, his heart racing, because he was trapped by the paradox of the short update.
And we identified that brevity isn't a relief, it's a cognitive burden. It forces real-time editing. We explored the agony of the small suitcase, the paralyzing fear of leaving crucial data behind, and the danger of letting unharnessed adrenaline short-circuit your brain.
We then explored the antidote, the art of the simple presentation. We realized that true simplicity requires violent ego removal.
It means trusting the reduction sauce.
Yes, it means having the courage to strip away the protective armor of corporate jargon, which is especially vital if you are translating your thoughts into English as a second language, and letting the pure, concentrated facts stand on their own.
To achieve that simplicity, we unpacked the mechanical architecture of signposting. We analyzed how first plants the flag of authority,
How next builds vital momentum to prevent dead air.
and how finally acts as a neurological trigger to recapture a wandering audience's attention.
We learned that these words are the turn signals that prevent rhetorical whiplash. And most importantly, we discovered the magical feedback loop of radical empathy.
The guide and the listener.
Exactly. By utilizing structure to relentlessly guide the listener, we force the audience to relax. And by witnessing their relaxation, we biologically cure our own anxiety.
It is an incredibly elegant solution to a chaotic biological problem.
It really is. And whether you are an executive is giving a high-stakes boardroom pitch, an engineer trying to explain a technical glitch to a non-technical manager, or, honestly, just someone sitting at a dinner table trying to explain the wildly convoluted plot of a movie to a friend without rambling for 20 minutes. This toolkit applies.
Structure is the ultimate antidote to anxiety.
The track dictates the flow of the energy.
Exactly.
As we wrap up this deep dive, I want to leave the final observation to you. Based on everything we've synthesized today, what is the lingering question we should be asking ourselves long after this conversation ends?
I think the most vital thing to mull over is this. If relying on simple, almost elementary concepts, just saying first, next, and finally, has the power to completely transform a chaotic, panic-inducing scenario into a masterful display of confident leadership, how often do we actively sabotage our own success in life simply because we cling to the false belief that being professional requires us to be complicated?
Wow. We equate complexity with worth. If it isn't confusing, we think it isn't valuable.
We do. We build these intricate, multi-layered traps for ourselves because we want to look smart. But true mastery, the kind of mastery that actually influences people and commands a room, looks almost invisible in its simplicity.
It brings us right back to the ticking clock we started with. We walk into these high-stakes moments convinced we have to be the action hero. We think we have to dramatically defuse the bomb at the last possible millisecond while everyone watches in awe.
But the reality is so much quieter.
It is.
Yeah.
Nobody in that room wants you to be an action hero. They just want you to be a reliable guy. They just want you to turn on the blinker, tell them where the car is going, and get everyone to the destination safely.
First, next.
Finally.
First, next, finally. Keep the suitcase small, let the sauce reduce, and just guide the listener. Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive. We will catch you next time.